Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is excavation. And what that is to address is excavating our essence and our truest selves. But before we get started, let's take a moment or two to get present and settled in. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen just flowing into your lungs, flooding your bloodstream, nourishing every cell and every organ. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, toxicity. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, energizing and bringing vital life force into every molecule, every electron, every cell throughout your body and beyond. And now let's just exhale any remaining stress or tension, negativity, toxicity, and let's gently press our palms together, really softly. Rub your fingers softly against your palms and feel that tickling and that tingling, and allow yourselves to become present to being in this physical body right here, right now. So today we're talking about excavation. And I came up with this topic based on what we've been talking about this week, yesterday, talking about gifts, our native gifts that are sort of a clue to who we are and who we can be in the world. And also excavating our truest self as an essence and expression of life that is beyond the limitations of the identities that we so often cling to, or that we recognize as ourselves, when in fact ourselves are broader than that explanation and perception. Good morning, Robert, and good morning, Irma. So great to have you guys here. And it's Friday, and so we're talking about excavation. And I think this is an adventure, to be plumbing the depths, or brushing off different wonderful artifacts of ourselves to get clues to who we are, or how we can most authentically express ourselves. And one of the ways that we can go about this excavation is by looking at the things that lit us up when we were little. So I believe that there are clues. Really, what we're talking about in terms of context for this discussion is finding our own purpose and our own voice in the world. And so looking back for clues is why I called this today's topic excavation. So looking back to our childhood, for instance, to find the things that we dreamt of or that we enjoyed most, that gives us an insight into our soul's calling, our innate desires and drives and joys and enthusiasms. So one of the things, like if I think back when I was a kid, one of the things that I loved was show and tell. I loved show and tell. It was a way that I could connect with other people. And it was, interestingly, as I look back at it now, having more awareness of my own dynamics, what I realize about show and tell is that it enabled me to have social interaction that was contextualized. So it wasn't just random conversation, it was directed, it was uh, constrained to a particular intention. And it's really interesting to me to look at. Good morning, Tammy. Really great to have you here. Um, so, what's really interesting to me is, for instance, in this in this venue, this is a specific type of communication. It's a specific constraint, right? Where it's purpose driven, and show and tell was purpose driven. And good morning, Suzanne. I love your little bird icon. Oh my gosh, it looks just like Maggie. That's amazing. Very, very cool. So what I'm suggesting to you is that these clues to your fulfillment, your unique fulfillment, and your unique gifts and talents, the clues reside in your own history. If you look back at the things that you chose, good morning, Dido. Great to have you here. The things that you chose to entertain yourself with, for instance. So, like I was saying, show and tell was a really cool thing, because I got to share my excitement about something. It was in a context that was constrained. It was educational, so that it was expansive. So in the reason I'm sharing this in this way, good morning, LC. Great to have you here. The reason that I'm sharing this in this way is so that perhaps you can look at your history and look at things that you really enjoyed, and maybe excavate those things to understand, what are these patterns, what are these clues to your authentic innate expression. And so I like this example, because if I follow it through my life, I can see that there are certain things that are consistent in relation to show and tell. For I was a sales rep for a bunch of years, and what was I doing as a sales rep? I was running around. I was selling eyeglass frames for a company, or multiple different companies at different times. But I would go and take my samples and I would show them to my clients, and I would engage with them and have conversation. But it was with with this contextual foundation. And then I had a training center. And the training center, I was teaching people software. Good morning, Andrea and Dennis. How wonderful to have you here. Thanks for saying hello. So we're talking about excavating our history, our past, to be able to find treasures and clues that lead us into a deeper, richer understanding of how we can find fulfillment and joy in our personal expression, and perhaps mission in our lives. So I'm just giving a personal example so that you can see that there's a common thread. I don't know that it would necessarily be obvious to it, superficially obvious, but as a kid, I was into show and tell. I used to play school. I used to enjoy playing school. Then I became a teacher. I was a sales rep. I was doing show and tell all the time. I became a teacher, which is also show and tell and educating. And it's also a constrained sort of context. And then now I do this live, and I do a podcast, which are also within kinds of constrained parameters, but it's all about show and tell, right? It's all about learning and having this defined way to communicate, or context within which to communicate. Good morning, Tammy. Great to have you here. So what this comes back to is me, I'm actually, you might not believe it, but I'm innately shy, and have often felt myself to be pretty socially awkward. Although over the years that has evolved, certainly going, becoming an outside sales rep, that helped to allow me to learn to be more socially fluid. But but there are these patterns that we can recognize in our lives to say, okay, these are the environments or these are the situations where I feel most comfortable, where I can be most authentically expressed, where I can shine. And so we can look at our what we consider our strengths and our weaknesses both to gain clues about the best vehicles for our personal and authentic expression. And when I say best, I mean um, those vehicles that allow us to shine, that allow us to shine. So I think if you look into your own life, you're going to find certain patterns. I notice that I'm really good one on one because I can connect intimately when there are large groups of people and there's not some kind of context. I feel less comfortable, or historically I felt less comfortable. I haven't been in a crowd for a really long time, so I don't actually know. But what I notice is that the way that I operate, which is a pattern that I've seen through my life, the way that I operate most effectively is when I'm able to connect intimately with another human. Even if it's in a group of people, finding one person to have a closer connection with makes all the difference. So what kind of patterns do you have? What kind of patterns do you see in yourself? Now, this situation is pretty interesting because I'm talking, you guys are communicating, and we're able to have an intimate connection because we have the constraints of what this is about. So each day there's a topic, we have a conversation, we're in alignment with each other. And so I'm wondering for you, what do you notice about yourself? Suzanne says, the more people, the more quiet I get. Yes, yes, I totally get that. Um, Especially if it's in, for me anyway, if it's in a social environment, I tend to watch. I tend to retreat and watch more than I engage. And it sounds like maybe that's the case for you too, Suzanne. So when do you shine? When do you find, like, what kinds of communications do you most enjoy? And Tammy says same thing. When there's more people, I get more quiet. And so when you get more quiet, are you observing? Are you feeling separate? Are what's going on inside? That's an opportunity to be gaining some insight, and also look back at times where you shine. So we see times when we retreat, we see times when we come forth. And what are those kinds of patterns in your life? So observing, Robert says, observing, right? So we're calculating, we're observing, we're calibrating. And I remember many times like being at a party and kind of watching from the sidelines, and then every now and then choosing to just sort of take a deep breath and jump into the fray, or looking for somebody that looks interesting to talk to, and then approaching that person, or stepping beyond shyness to reach out and make that connection. Once that connection is there, then it flows. I'm wondering if that's true for you as well. So Suzanne says, I used to work as a tour guide years ago. At first I was apprehensive, but then I really enjoyed it and I was good at it. I did shine. It was really exhausting too though. Yes. So I'm totally with you, Suzanne. So there's a thing called an extroverted introvert, I believe. And it sounds like that's you and that's me. So, like being on all the time, being on takes energy. And if we're that kind of person that is an extroverted introvert, we can be out, we can be vital and active and engaged and engaging and entertaining and whatever. And then we need to go and replenish ourselves to get some quiet time to find our own center again. And it's really interesting because I have a coaching practice and I love working with the people that I work with. We have such a deep and intimate and profound connection, and I am stimulated by the work. I enjoy it tremendously, and yet I hadn't realized how depleted I got because I wasn't giving myself time to replenish. I wasn't giving myself time to just fill the vessel back up again. And that's like alone time, just doing nothing other than being with myself. So I'm guessing that some of you have a similar dynamic. So Irma says, in a party, I prefer to just clean, serve, and not interact. Just see. Well, so I hear you, Irma. However, I can imagine how lovely it would be to have at least one person in that party being your teammate, to be able to be observing with, or to be serving and cleaning up with, to be actually enjoying some social company in that context might be a really wonderful thing. And Suzanne says, yes, I love people. And Tammy says, I lead the kitchen group at my church and I'm fine in my small group to be led. More people, I start to doubt that I'm the right person, need more confidence in myself. So I think that's a really interesting dynamic, Tammy, because how small is your small group? It might be 2 people, it might be 3 people. When is the group too big? And I wonder this not just for you, but for myself and for the rest of us as well, is like, what is our threshold of where we're connected and able to stay connected? And it's really interesting when we have, like your kitchen group, you have a constrained, defined context, right? This is what I was talking about earlier, is having a context within which to operate. And having that definition, for me anyway, has offered safety, and it seems like it's doing the same for you. So if I'm in a group of people that I know and love, and I know they love me, that's a whole different experience than being in a group of strangers, right? And what does it take to make friends of those strangers? This is where we get to dig deep and look at, well, what is the inner dynamic that allows us to get connected and feel connected with others? So Dido says, let your life speak. That's a Quaker saying. Yes, that's what we're talking about exactly right now, is letting our life speak. And each of us has our own unique, brilliant spark. And Dido says, when someone is trying to find their core values, preferences, and callings. Excellent. Yes, that's really what we're talking about. So these things that we might consider our quirks are also our gifts, you know. So um, we consider that we have blessings and curses, but I think that what we have is blessings, and it's a matter of how we get to use them. So even our shyness can be a strength, and it can be a gift, because we have the ability to stand back and to observe. You know, the what comes with shyness often comes with greater introspection, right? Just generally. And maybe that's an overgeneralization, but it's a I think it is a generalization, but it's probably more accurate than not. So Tammy says, good point. There is like 15 people, but church friends. So I don't feel judged by them. In a group of people I just met, I fall back for sure. So what are we doing when we're falling back in a group with people that we don't know? We're kind of assessing, checking for danger, right? Checking for safety, checking for openings, really calibrating and trying to get a sense of what exactly is going on. And um, I think it does very much have to do with a sense of safety. And so again, when we're with people that we know, when we're feeling safe in a context, then we can shine, even if it's 50 or 100 people or 200 people, maybe even. If you've ever been in one of these trainings where there's a whole pile of people in the room, and everybody is going through this process of intimate experience, then within that kind of context, that breeds a sense of safety and trust, right? So it's not like being in a room filled with strangers ultimately, because there's this mutual experiential bond that gets cultivated. Rosalind says, making a connection starts with eye contact, I think. If they see you, then the person is open to receive. You know, I think that there is so much that is communicated through eye contact, for sure. There's so much to read. And the thing is that most of the impressions that we receive in a way that is not top of mind, is not directly, overtly conscious. So, for instance, when you're looking into someone's eyes, what are you seeing? You're seeing that also, not only are you seeing their eyes and the dilation of their eyes and where their eyes are centered in the whites of their eyes, you know, like whether they have white above their eyes or below their eyes, which signals or triggers different responses. But you're seeing the muscle tension around their eyes. If they're smiling, you can see, are they smiling, really smiling, with the wrinkles around their eyes, or are they just smiling with their mouth? You're seeing all kinds of things that may not consciously be registering. And that gives you a sense of whether you can trust this person or not. I mean, if you're seeing somebody that's looking like with their eyes all squinty, you're going to have a different reaction than if you're looking at somebody whose eyes are wide open, right? And sometimes you could feel that somebody's squinting because they can't see. Other times they're squinting because they have some kind of attitude going on, or, you know, there's all kinds of things that we're interpreting on a subconscious level. But to get back to this idea of excavation, what kinds of treasures can we find? One of the things that for myself, and probably for quite a lot of you, that was really important to me growing up. Thank you, Rosalind. One of the things that was really important to me growing up, and has been throughout all my life, is creativity. And that creative expression moves into all arenas, all different arenas. If I can't be creative If I can't find some kind of expression and that process, that what is creativity? Well, it's a generative process, right? What are we doing when we're being creative? We're actually problem solving, right? When we're in the act of creating, we're generating, we're synthesizing, we're problem solving. And the idea is that we are making something new. So there's a curiosity and an exploration around that. And I'm guessing that a lot of you have something similar around that creative drive. So when we're looking at how to express ourselves in the world, when we recognize these traits that we've excavated, we can start to assemble them in this wonderful mosaic that then becomes our a mode of expression. And when that expression is founded on these treasures that we have excavated, then we have a better capability to find fulfillment and joy and satisfaction in our lives. So what are some keys for you? Is creativity a primary thing? For me, also beauty is something that has been really consistent in my life. The appreciation of beauty and the need to be surrounded by beauty in some way, shape, or form in order to really nurture my soul. And so if you look at patterns, like what kinds of entertainment do you enjoy? Is it entertainment that is soothing? Is it exciting? Is it intriguing, filled with intrigue? Or what kinds of entertainment do you watch, and what is it you get from that? Like, what is it nurturing in you? These are ways that we can excavate and recognize some other parts of ourselves. What are the hobbies that you engage in, and what is it about those hobbies that you most enjoy, that really stimulate you? And Rosalind says, my TV is Enlightened World Network. There you go. So Rosalind, clearly one of the big things for you is growth and evolution, right? And so exploration, understanding. Isabel says, I need to be creative too. I would love to just do that in life. So I love that you said that, Isabel. And I think that you probably do it in life more than you realize. And I'm wondering if, we're talking about creating certain contexts or how we shine within certain contexts. I wonder if we take on the beingness of those contexts, what could change? So what I mean by that is, what if whatever you're doing, I am being creative. I am beingness. I am being creativity. And what if I'm just proposing this as an exercise? What if you could be the expression of creativity in every aspect of life? What might that look like? What might be possible? What might shift in your experience if you could actually bring into the physical embodiment, into the physical experience, the experience of being creativity? What would that look like? What would that feel like? Even in the most mundane situations, you might find new ways of doing things just arise naturally from this space of being creativity. So Rosalind is replying to Isabel saying, my friend Carolina loves markers. She has a coloring book. It's sort of meditative. I suppose you could pick colored pencils. Yes. Well, so coloring is definitely a meditative uh, activity, and choosing the colors and being present to the colors is really enriching. I'm wondering if you guys have heard of Zen Tangle. Zen as in Nancy, Tangle, Zentangle. Um, and it's it, uh, it's a wonderful meditative sort of discipline, but drawing in certain patterned ways to make these beautiful patterns. And I invite you to check it out. I think you can go to Zentangle. I think it's .com, and there are all kinds of examples there, and fun doodles. It's really like more defined doodling. And so Suzanne says, you are creative by just being. Exactly. Exactly. That's really the truth of it, because we're creating all the time. And when we take ownership of the fact that we're creating, look, we can create different perspectives, different experiences, different points of view, different emotions, and we also get to make things and think creatively and come up with creative solutions and approaches, etc. And Isabel says, I paint. That's awesome. That's awesome. And I get back to painting, as I had started playing with encaustic paints, and they have been on the sideline for a little bit. So I've made more space in my life, and I get to go back to enjoying that. And Dido put in the link for Zentangles. Check it out. It's really cool and fun, and it's kind of just a way that we can nurture a creative spirit while at the same time, or a creative outcome, even activity, while at the same time moving into that space of focus. And yesterday we were talking about flow, and one of the places that I experience the greatest flow is in those moments of creativity, in the engagement in the creative process, because it becomes really absorptive and meditative. So I invite you to check that kind of stuff out too. But this is really about you observing you from a bird's eye view, to say, oh wow, I never noticed that trend before, or that pattern. Look at that pattern. What is that telling me about me? Because so many of us are doing personal growth, transformation type activities, programs, practices. And the thing that I noticed is that for most of my life, was as I was pursuing all these different disciplines and activities that were going to transform me or fix what I perceived to have been broken, what I realized is that I didn't necessarily have a that's Maggie dropping things off a shelf because she likes to practice with gravity. Anyway, what I realized is that I didn't really understand my own inner workings. I didn't really understand these patterns. I didn't recognize them. When we recognize them, then we get to utilize them and work with them in a creative way, in a way that enables us to be more authentically expressed. So Isabel says, yes, Even doing something that I'm so tired of doing, I do it differently from anyone else because I have to put myself into anything I do. I think that's why people love my work and appreciate me so much. I don't have any doubt about that, Isabel, that you know, if it's some, even if it's something you're tired of doing, that you bring your own flair to it. And that's a way to bring our presence. There we go. There's not much left on the shelf for her to drop. Um, anyway, so yeah, there's so many, there are so many ways that we can express and be creative. And Suzanne says, you're at your happy place when you're creative. I am, and obviously you are. I think that some people have this belief that they're not creative, and I think that they just haven't discovered the expression of it, or else they just have a limited context for understanding what creativity is, and maybe they just need to expand that context a bit. And so Dido says, I long to weave like I did as a kid, and I came across a loom the other day. Oh, that's so awesome, Dido. We were talking about that. And so you came across a loom that you have or that you're going to get. What kind of loom? I'm a fiber arts person, so I dig that, and I'm so excited. Can't wait to talk to you about that. Um, I have I have lots of yarns and things that I get to go through, um, and maybe I give some of them away. So it would be wonderful to be able to share that with you. Um, Isabel says, when I I'm not sure what you were saying there. Something I feel meditating feels, oh, when I paint, I feel meditating feels so good and helps me to heal. You know what? This is a really, really, really important point, is that it does, meditating, being creative, getting in the zone, we're getting into a different state, and we're calming down our uh, our nervous system. And when we are able to reach this calmer place in our nervous system, it does indeed help us to heal. And Robert, you said you right. And we were talking the other day about you being in the zone and not accessing it as readily. I'm wondering if that shifted at all after our conversation collectively here, if you were able to find yourself more in that zone and less fearful of your brilliant light. And Dido says, I, here I was in a thrift store, and the loom was almost free because it was for you, Dido. That's why. How awesome! That is so, so cool. I'm so excited for you. We've got to talk. So anyway, I invite you to dig deep and to excavate a bit of your past and see if you can identify some of these patterns that give you greater insight into you. So Robert says, shifted. Now I feel inspired, letting go of fear. I am thrilled to hear that, Robert. That's amazing. Congratulations on that. That's so awesome. And so I think I'm going to wrap it up. It's Friday, and I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful, amazing weekend. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I come here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. And I invite you to check out the wonderful community on Enlightened World Network, and enjoy, 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 and excavate. Let this weekend be a weekend of discovery for you, and allow yourself to find your way to new awareness of yourself, your gifts, your patterns, and just enjoy. Lots and lots of